Welcome to Andy and Ari On3, presented by Wendy's. And Ari, what a day. We're here in College Station, Kyle Field. We just watched a pretty amazing performance by the Texas defense. Not a real amazing performance by anybody else. But Texas headed to the SEC championship game. Arizona State's headed to the Big 12 championship game. Penn State is headed to the Big 10 championship game. Unbelievable.
We're done with assumptions. I'm done with assumptions, Andy. I'm not going to assume anything ever again. What we think we know about the sport changes rapidly every single weekend. Things happen that we don't see coming, results that are thrilling. It's just a great sport. And here we are. We've had a very hectic day. We watched the Ohio State game from a Texas roadhouse. We filmed a post-game video on the On3 channel off the side of a major road and were honked at during it. We came here and saw a pretty exciting, not exciting, boring, but important.
It was exciting in moments.
Yeah, it was exciting in moments. My first Kyle Field experience. And honestly, we had no internet during the game for the most part. So we are going to be kind of scatterbrained tonight. We're going to do our best to work through what the playoff picture is going to look like, what these games meant. We're going to, do our usual thing, but just give us some leeway. It's going to be an interesting.
Should we play the game that we started playing in the press box?
Yes, sure.
So we started playing a game in the press box called Definitely In, Maybe In. I don't know what the third kind of in.
Potentially
win and in.
Potentially.
There's win and in for a few of these guys.
There's a few out there too that are just 10-2 and sitting there kind of in the abyss. So I have a list behind me on my computer.
Grab your computer. You grab that computer.
We're gonna
break it out
best on the angles here, guys. So so first of all, let's just start with Definitely In. It's a team that we haven't spoken about a lot, Andy, but because it's been so boring how good they've been. Definitely In Oregon. Yes,
the Oregon Ducks are definitely in. They crushed Washington. A lot of frustration. Remember how I said that Ohio State would take 3 years of frustration out on Michigan? They didn't do that. But Oregon definitely took a bunch of losses worth of frustration out on Washington.
Yeah, and also the only power team or the only team in college football to finish the season undefeated. And I think that Oregon deserves some flowers. They had a tough non-conference game against Boise State that came down to the wire. They had Ohio State at home. They had to travel all across the country now in the new Big Ten from the West Coast, and they made it from start to finish 12-0. The only team to do that. The official number one team in the country right now, playing Penn State in Indianapolis next weekend. The Ducks could have been a bigger focal point in our conversations during this year, but they were the only team that were devoid of drama.
Right.
They just kept winning. They were the best. There was no question about how they were doing and how, what they could do with that talent. And they keep proving it week in and week out. So it'll be interesting to see how Penn State goes. It's going to be a whole nother can of worms now with Ohio State.
Wait. Remember my saucy take?
What is your
Oregon and Ohio State will only play once this season?
You were right.
We don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
But
we don't know.
There's a chance. There's a chance. And when Saturday started, there's no way I would have thought that. By the way, if you're wondering why not just going crazy, oh my God, Michigan beat Ohio State. We did an entire video on that earlier in the day. So you can see that on the On3 Sports channel. We are definitely going to talk about that, though, because there's a lot of other reverberations that happened after that game that tie back.
And both of us wrote about it at on3.com, and there was a 20-minute video of the instant freak-out reaction.
It was a freak-out.
There's been about 8 hours since that game started. We're going to have another conversation about that. We both wrote about it, so our brains have kind of caught up to what happened. So stick with us here. We're going to get to that. Next team on the list, Andy, of definitely is Penn State. They are a team that, funny enough, I have given a lot of crap to this year.
Yeah.
And they did lose the only game that they were an underdog in all year to Ohio State, but they have found a way to get to Indianapolis, which is a step in the right direction, and honestly are playing really well offensively. So
yeah, they were great. So they give up a touchdown on the first play from scrimmage against Maryland and just destroy them the rest of the game.
Yeah, it was either the first or the second. I don't want to, because you got that information.
It was very early.
It was very early in the game, and then just scored a bunch of points. And then James Franklin
had to defend the threes and the fours scoring points.
Yeah. Also, he said when the threes and the fours get into the game, they're going to play football. They earn the right to it. And I could not agree with that.
Oh yeah,
you're playing 100%. The game, just stop them, Loxley. Figure it out. Okay, but Penn State, Oregon, big
nobody planted a flag in that game, right?
Yeah. And we do have to have a discussion later on in the show, too. This is going to be a 4-hour show. I wrote a column on Friday night after the Georgia game about the SEC being weak or not having
mid, I think was the kids say.
I'm not a kid. I don't say mid, but I think that the point of the column was that they are propping each other up on fake and mirage type results. And now the Big Ten is potentially going to send 4 teams, and we have to have a discussion.
Yeah, that Michigan team beating that Ohio State team.
Yeah,
that's when you get mad about Oklahoma beating Alabama. It's the same thing.
I don't think, like, here's the thing about me, man. I have a strong opinion, but if new information shows up or things happen, Andy, you know that I'm going to be real about it. So we have to have a discussion about the Big Ten and the SEC and how we feel about it. But those 2 teams are automatically in. The third Big Ten team that's automatically in is Indiana. Indiana is a 1-loss team. They got blown out by Ohio State in their only test against a good team.
Yeah, I think they're going to be punished in the seedings, but not in the not getting in.
Because if Ohio State falls to 9 or 10 in the seeding, like, I think that Indiana has to be behind them.
Correct.
Probably. So,
yes.
You know that, but they're in as an 11-1 team. With all these teams losing, you've got 3 automatic, no doubt about. Well, and then we'll get to Ohio State.
You said Tennessee, right?
No, we've only done Big Ten. So Oregon, Penn State, Indiana are the 3 definitely from the Big Ten.
Yes.
Now we have Ohio State in the probably area, so stay tuned for that. The next 2 teams that I have written down here are Tennessee is definitely in.
Yes.
They're a 2-loss, 10-2 team with a win over Alabama. They're done playing football until the playoff, but they will be in the field.
Yeah.
And then the other one that we have is Notre Dame. They finished the season 11-1. They had a few pick sixes and a blowout.
What became a blowout? It wasn't really a blowout most of the game.
Over USC. They've won, I believe, 9 straight or 10 straight.
10 straight
since losing to NIU, which in a game that felt like it was yesterday, Andy. The season's flown by.
Yeah.
10 straight. They're going to be in cash.
By the way, we were watching this Texas team beat the Michigan team that beat Ohio State on the day we went to the B-Dubs and watched.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was It's been a fast, long year. So, and I think we have to put Texas probably into the definitely bracket now.
Texas is in the definitely bracket. They were playing in the SEC championship game against Georgia. They could lose it, but that would be loss number 2. It would actually be loss number 2 to the same team. They beat everybody else. I think they're in the definitely pile.
Okay, so we have 6 definitely piles. So that's 6 spots of the 12 spoken for. We probably have to, now that UNLV won by 1 million over Nevada on Saturday.
I don't think it's as cut and dried as you do about the Mountain West champ.
Well, why don't we type in G5 or G5 rep?
Okay, that's fine. There definitely will be one of those.
7 in there. So now we get into the probably.
Yeah.
Which is the interesting can of worms that you have with Ohio State. So Ohio State lost an embarrassing game to Michigan. We will break that down later in the show. But they are a 10-2 team who have beaten 2 playoff teams and have 1 point loss to the number 1 team in the country. With the way that the back end of this is looking like, I think that's a pretty solid resume to get in.
I think they're going to get in. The win against Indiana, and especially the fashion in which they beat Indiana, is going to carry them.
And I think you could probably even make a case for definitely here. But they're not playing, and there are teams that are still playing. So I felt uncomfortable, like, saying
what we're saying. I guess you're right. If Texas had lost tonight, we probably would have had them in the probably pile also.
Yes.
Even though they
probably is like, they're probably getting in, but we're not going to say definitely.
So we're at 8 teams now. There's 4 spots
8.
left.
Then Georgia is in the probably pile.
Yes.
They're a 2-loss team.
Oh, another one we could put in the definitely pile. We just don't know which one. The ACC champ, which could be Clemson or SMU. SMU is the one we thought was going to be in the championship game, but Miami loses a thriller at Syracuse. Kicks a field goal to cut the lead to 4 and doesn't get back. Doesn't score again. Game over.
I just got the text from Ripper that says, hold the mic closer, Andy. You just pushed my hand up like a...
Yeah, that's what I did.
You're feeding a baby. Okay. Yes, ACC champion is in. So that brings us to probably Georgia. Okay. So Georgia is a 2-loss team at the moment. They played the toughest schedule by every schedule metric.
They've also beaten the team that can beat them in the SEC championship game.
They've already beaten the team that could beat them in the SEC championship game. I feel like even if they get a 3rd loss, they won't be penalized for being in the SEC championship game, and they'll probably get in at 9-3. Yeah.
I think that feels about right.
I don't know that, like, because you're not gonna put Alabama,
right? Who are you kicking out
over them?
Well, this is where Ole Miss did beat them very badly, but they didn't go to the SEC championship game. And this is the one where you would have Greg Sankey and or Tony Petitti going berserk if any of their teams were left out that made the championship game.
Yeah, so I do think that Georgia's probably safely in. So now here's where you start getting into the weirdness, because I only have two probably.
Oh, and Richard in the chat asked the question. This is what we're coming to, actually. Still leaving out South Carolina over a 2-loss SMU or Clemson. Listen, the only way Clemson's getting in is winning the ACC championship.
Yeah,
they're not getting in as an at-large.
And Clemson is a maybe on my list, but we also have ACC champ in there. So you have SMU and Clemson both in maybe.
Right.
Because I don't think that we can definitively say that the loser of the ACC championship is in. Right?
SMU has a chance of making it in. Clemson does not have a chance if they lose. They have to win it.
But both are maybe because they're maybe.
Clemson's not going to be an at-large over South Carolina or over Georgia, which beat them head-to-head.
Which then brings us to the next interesting one, which is Miami. Miami lost on Saturday to Syracuse. That wonderful defense showed up again. They had a 21-0 lead and blew it. Mario Cristobal kicked a field goal on 4th and goal from the 10 late in the game, down 7, which I thought was a very bizarre decision to knowingly and willingly give the ball back to the team that you couldn't stop for 3 quarters, and they ended up losing. So, but Miami now is a 10-2 team. No real quality wins unless, Ward Manuel says
you're not you counting the Gators? You're not counting the Gators? They're a 7-win team.
I guess we can count the
Gators. They planted the flag in Tallahassee and then started a fight.
I don't know what targeting is. I also don't know what a quality win is, because it's like, oh, they're playing. It's like, that's not a quality win. They're playing well, but you don't get credit for that. So anyway, Miami's a maybe. Then we have South Carolina, which we had definitively out earlier in the week, but they are a 9-3 team that now beat the Clemson team, who may win the ACC.
And I think if Clemson wins the ACC, that's very helpful for South Carolina. Now, South Carolina lost head-to-head to Ole Miss, which is also a 3-loss team. South Carolina lost head-to-head to LSU and Texas A&M, which are 4-loss teams. But the Ole Miss loss, I think about that. They can make an excuse. They can make an injury excuse, because remember, Lenora Sellers got hurt the week before against LSU. He came back but was banged up, and Rocket Sanders didn't play in that game.
Yeah.
So you can make a little injury excuse there, and I think you have a chance. I don't know how good of a chance. And there's also Alabama, which beat South Carolina.
Yes.
And is 9-3 as well.
That's the rest of the maybe list.
Yeah.
You have Alabama and Ole Miss, and the one we also forgot it definitely, which is the Big 12 champ, right?
Right. The Big 12 champ is getting in.
So then you have Arizona State. And
well, hold on. Okay. Before we go for it, let's make sure we agree on this. The Big 12 champ is getting in, even if Boise State is a 12-1 Mountain West champ, and Army is a 12-1. Actually, they'd be 11-1 because they haven't played Navy yet, but an 11-1 American champ.
Yes, I think that. I don't know if you do. I think that. I don't know if you do.
I think so. I'm not positive on that. I think so.
So you wouldn't put them in the definitely?
I don't know.
I mean, we could drop it to maybe.
I think, are you going to say Arizona State has a better resume than Army? Because it's Army that's the issue. Boise State's going to be in, and is going to be ranked higher than that Big 12 champ if they're 12-1.
Oh, you're talking about whether or not 2 G5 teams are getting in? I'm comfortable putting Big 12 in.
Okay. All right.
Definitely.
As
you're going to put Army in over Arizona State if they're 10-2 with a Big 12 championship at the end of the year? They've got wins over Kansas State, and they've got.
All right.
I mean, they've won.
I'm asking you to defend it here.
I don't even know that there's something to defend. I think it's a definite.
Okay.
And that's how strongly I feel about that. Okay. So the rest of the maybe list, which is you basically just helped me do bubble watch, so I appreciate it, is Alabama, Ole Miss.
And we had South Carolina in there as well.
We had South Carolina in there as well. So that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody else is eliminated. So I can go in here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's 19 teams. We had 22 teams alive coming into the weekend. So, still a lot to sort out. And
sorry, I'm just fixing Ari's mic.
Was my mic messed up?
No, you're just not talking into it.
If I held it any closer to my face, this would be like
make love to the mic, Ari. Make love to it. All right, so we have a pretty good idea now.
Okay.
So the bubble is basically the SEC 3-loss teams, right? That's the bubble.
Deciphering, and that's the thing. Like now, we just have to choose. because there's no more games to be played. Like, that's it. Like, so.
Well, okay, the bubble also could be SMU if they lose to Clemson, because I think an 11-2 SMU might have a case.
Yeah. And I actually think that the cluster of SEC teams, like I have two ways of looking at it, Andy. It's the SEC. They're going to figure out the way to get teams in. On the other hand, if you have three indistinguishable SEC teams who have all beaten each other and have similar resumes, different teams, but similar when it's all said and done, if you can't pick between them, then you might just pick the ACC team.
Oh, no.
Easier.
You know what you're going to do? We're going to go to my old 4-team philosophy. Remember how we did the 4-team philosophy? The truth serum?
Okay.
The juice. Back in the 4-team playoff, when you had a debate between the 4th team and the 5th team to see who the 4th team would be, what I decided you should do, they never did this because nobody ever follows my advice, but you kidnap the coach of the number 1 seed, like bag over the head, grab him, throw him in a van. You inject him with truth serum. I have sodium pentothal. Is that what it is? Whatever it is, whatever makes you
don't want to see Andy's Google history, guys.
And you say this: who would you most like to play between these two teams? And the coach will go, I'd like to play Arkansas. I'm just giving you an example. And the other team is Notre Dame. And I'd be like, okay, then you're playing Notre Dame, because whoever you want to play is not who might beat you. So that's what we do. We're going to kidnap
but here's the thing. Like, this is like,
it has to be the coach of the team that would play that team, which I think it'd be the 11 seed. So
this goes back to our discussion.
So they play the 6. So we kidnap the coach of the 6 seed, and we're like, who would you least like, or who'd you most like to play?
This goes back to our discussion from Friday night, Andy, which is in 2019, that was an easy game to play.
Yeah, it's a little harder now.
It's not an easy game to play right now. It's like, would you rather play Ole Miss, South Carolina, or Alabama? I don't know. Like, if the debate was between Alabama,
that's like a Styles make fight situation. Yeah.
Back in 2019, if the debate was between Alabama and the Big 12 champion, I'd be like, I would rather not play Alabama. Like, it was easy.
Right.
Like, now, so this, like, and I know there's no precedent in college football playoff. Like, they don't use past college football playoff committee decisions to inform or guide current ones. This isn't the court of law. There are new people. Yeah. Things change. They make their own decisions. But you know what this reminds me of? And I remember it like it was yesterday, but like, I was covering Ohio State in 2014 in the inaugural 14 playoff field. And at the end of the year,
that was such an okey doke, that last one.
Yeah, well, at the end of the year, you had TCU and Baylor, and you had Ohio State.
Let's set up for the folks who don't remember. So
if you don't remember, I'm sorry.
Baylor beat TCU in the head-to-head game. This was back when the Big 12 played a true round robin. It was a great schedule. Everybody played everybody. Baylor beat TCU, but Baylor lost right before the first committee ranking. So they put Baylor behind TCU. And they did that for all of the committee rankings until the last one, when somebody bright, I'm sure, stood up and was like, Baylor beat TCU, right? We can't possibly have them behind TCU. And so TCU was number 3 going into that week. TCU wound up number 5 or number 6. Baylor wound up ahead of TCU wound up number 6. Baylor wound up ahead of TCU at number 5. Ohio State wound up number 4 because Ohio State would have kicked the crap out of Baylor or TCU, and everybody knew it.
Well, this was also during Ohio State's starting quarterback got injured in the Michigan game, and then Cardale Jones, the third-string quarterback, came in
beat Wisconsin by a billion.
59-0.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was the most – I covered that game. I was there. It was the most thorough domination of good team playing good team I've ever seen.
So they might do this again, is what we're saying.
But this reminds me of, if you can't – like, because, like, if Ohio State didn't exist in 14 and they would have lost to Wisconsin and they had to choose between Baylor and TCU, it's an impossible decision. And I guess maybe you could just say, well, one beat the other. Like, this is the same thing, except there are 3 teams who all basically beat each other and have very different but the same resume. So, like, I'm wondering if an ACC team like Miami or
SMU
ACC championship game, that's a cleaner decision.
It's not going to be Clemson. Clemson's not a cleaner decision, though.
Yeah.
Because Clemson lost to Georgia and lost to South Carolina. Which, by the way, but that Clemson-South Carolina game was a banger.
But then you have Miami sitting there.
You do. What is Miami's best win?
I don't think they have one.
It's Louisville.
They played Florida.
It's Louisville or Florida. It's one of those two.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they don't have one.
So that's where we're at.
When I say quality win, I just want everybody to be clear, and I want, I'm sure you're with me on this. My quality wins are teams currently ranked in the top 25 of the CFP poll. That's how I like. And the thing that's annoying to me is that Ward Manuel in interviews says quality win about teams that have lost 6 times.
Well,
it's an impressive win, and it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
just stick to the protocol. So we know, like,
Ward Manuel almost walked himself into saying the Citadel was a good win for Clemson last week. He was struggling.
I don't even know what the hell's going on.
Yeah,
just like, because there's a difference between impressive win and quality win. You could be impressed by the way somebody looks. I was impressed by Indiana's Purdue win today when they won by 50. That is, it's not a quality win. Like, there's a distinction.
I think they won by more than 50.
So Miami has impressive wins.
Yeah,
they have 0 quality wins.
Yeah, that is where we're at. That is where we're at going now. We didn't totally get through that because we don't know who won the BYU Houston game yet. And the result of the BYU Houston game will determine the other team in the Big 12 championship. So Iowa State has done its part by winning Farmageddon. Mm-hmm. If BYU wins, it is Iowa State, Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. If Houston wins, Colorado will play Arizona State. That game is going on right now.
Yeah, but none of those teams we have slotted Big 12 champion in definitely, but I don't think that the loser of those games will be in. So you have just one team. You have to decide who, like, by the time we get back to Waco where we're staying tonight, we'll know who won the BYU Colorado game, and that'll help.
BYU Houston.
Yeah, BYU Houston, and we'll know whether it's Colorado, Arizona State, or Iowa State.
Yeah.
But only one Big 12 team we can agree is going to the playoff.
Correct.
So
one
Arizona State loses, as great as their story has been, they're out.
They're out.
So yeah, so actually, like, I think we cleared that up pretty good.
I think so.
I think that, like, there's no teams that we didn't mention that are still maybe alive, right?
I don't think so, because I mentioned Army here.
Yeah,
so
you didn't mention Army, and there's nobody in the G5. Army still has to play Tulane, and that's going to be a difficult game. But
Alec is mad because I said Ohio State would have crushed Baylor or TCU. They absolutely would have crushed Baylor or TCU in 2014.
I mean, we have the benefit of hindsight in that scenario.
Did you watch the Ohio State Alabama or the Ohio State Oregon game?
They won the national title, and they turned the ball over 5 times in the national title game and still won by 30. Like, yeah.
I know that's not an anti-Big 12 stance. That's just I'm sorry that wouldn't have worked out for you that way.
That was the year where Ohio State actually reached its ceiling. I know it's
all right.
Solar eclipse. You know, you see it rarely, but it's always pleasant. Well,
to do, so. let's get into that, Ari, because we need to talk about the games that happened today. But that is the one we need to talk about the most.
You know
because
what, man? I'm really proud of ourselves. I was kind of nervous about that. I feel like we crushed that. Like, if you listen to that last 20 minutes, like, you are caught up.
You're caught up, and I think you're feeling pretty good about your handle on what's at stake here this next week. Now, we still don't know who's playing for the Big 12 championship because the game's not over, but I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, but that only changes who's playing, not circumstance. Like, I think we're caught up on circumstance. So, okay, yes, let's talk about Ohio State. It was the most shocking and important result of the day, and there's a lot to unpack there.
We just have to talk about Ryan Day. It is well, we can get to the rest of it. It starts with Ryan Day and cascades from there. Ryan Day, you wrote the headline perfectly in your column. Ryan Day has a Michigan problem, and Ohio State has a Ryan Day problem, because you can't be the head coach at Ohio State if you can't beat Michigan. And for whatever reason, Ryan Day can't beat Michigan, because if you can't beat this Michigan team, like the Michigan team that's going to fire the money cannon at Bryce Underwood next week and then fire the money cannon into the transfer portal, if you can't beat this one, the one next year is going to be way better.
Yeah, so, like, the thing that is tough about the Ryan Day discourse is that when he lost 3 in a row, and it doesn't matter how good Michigan is, you can't lose 3 in a row as Ohio State.
Ohio State's good too.
Yeah. But Michigan was also very good during those 3 years. It wasn't like they were, like, laying eggs against crappy teams because they were, like, Michigan won the national title last year, and Ohio State had the ball within a possession with a minute left. Like, that, they lost. It's inexcusable. You understand it, though.
Yeah.
Like, you can, like, wrap your head around it.
Hold on. Alex still in the chat. TCU crushed your mighty SEC Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl, Andy. Alec, I didn't say they would have lost to Alabama that year. I said they would have lost to Ohio State. That's a Big Ten team. Try to keep up.
When that happened, I was 24 years old, skating and on Tinder. Like, why are we talking about this right now?
Yeah. If you want to call me a Big Ten 2014 homer, by all means, go ahead.
He's a Buckeye homer. Guys.
Yeah.
How's it feel, asshole? You're a Buckeye homer.
Oh, my God. Well, nobody's a Buckeye homer today. And that's the conversation we're having here.
But the thing that is really off-putting, if you're an Ohio State fan, is that Ryan Day has been compared to John Cooper incessantly for the last few years. He's a person who's not from Ohio, who came in, recruits nationally, has really talented rosters, and doesn't win against Michigan. This is the first time they lost to a bad team, period. Not just a bad Michigan team. They haven't lost a single game under Ryan Day's leadership to a team that bad. Forget the helmets. They just haven't. They've lost a lot of big games, but they have lost 0 games.
They could have played pure Trestle ball, pure Kirk Ferentz ball, keep away. Forced Michigan to drive the length of the field, and they should have won that game by 3 touchdowns if they did that.
Yeah, well, they could not run the football, which is an entirely different discussion. But the point here is that you can, like in the past, it was like, why did he punt before halftime instead of trying to score a touchdown? Or why did he kick a long field goal? You had like all these like micro transactions and decisions that he had during the game that you could break down and go, well, he choked, or he didn't coach well, or they made this decision, or this position wasn't good enough. Like there was an answer to it. But when you have a team like Michigan this year, who just frankly isn't a good football team, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be an asshole. They're just not good this year.
Yeah. Like
the problem isn't a personnel group or a decision. It is a temperament.
It's a program.
It's a program. It's something is broken. And it's beyond breaking down stars and talent and draft picks and all the things that we've spent the last 3 years doing.
No, it's you see a winged helmet and you poop your pants. Like what? Why?
And it's like any Ohio State fan that's older than 20 listening to this.
Like, would they lose to Delaware just because of the helmets? Princeton?
Yeah, maybe. That's a good point. But any Ohio State fan over 25 or who was alive watching football in the 90s remembers that John Cooper look on the sideline during Michigan games. And if you don't remember, I'll show it to you.
And that look, you saw that look.
That's an anxious man who is out of answers. And Ryan Day at times in the past has looked like that, but if
you saw it today,
the game on Saturday, it was the entire fourth quarter. While they were running the ball down the field, a team that
there it is. It's on the screen right now.
You literally can't.
It's on the screen right now.
Even throw a forward pass. They did have a few third down conversions that were nice throws that Davis Warden had, but for the most part, like you knew that if they were going to get into field goal range, it was going to be on the ground. And Kalel Malling still ran that 27-yarder into the red zone, like. He just knew it. It's like everybody in the stadium knew it. There was a tension.
Didn't I say it? When's the dam breaking? When's the big run coming? Like you just knew.
The dam shouldn't break. They don't have any other ability. So like, but that's the problem. Like I was on On3's Letterman Row podcast with Spencer Holbrook 2 weeks ago, talking about the Indiana game, and the Michigan game came up, and he made an off comment about, yeah, well, whenever I'm at a Michigan press conference, it could never have been more tense than when, just tense in the room. And I'm like, that is the literal problem. Like you being in the room and realizing and feeling how tense it is, it travels into the locker room. It travels into the stadium. Did you see those fans today? They look like they were having fun.
No, they look miserable.
They look like they were just like waiting for it to happen again. And it's a contagious thing. So you have a coach at the moment right now, Andy, who is scared to death of Michigan. And I don't know if it's insulting to say, but the results that's what it is. So it doesn't matter how much money you spend in NIL, what quarterback you go get, whatever you're going to do, like there is never going to be a mismatch larger than the one that they possessed today again.
Yeah.
With Bryce Underwood and their NIL monster woke up, guys. So like that is it. Like,
well, okay, now it's time to shift to the other piece of the conversation. This is what I wrote about. Because if Sharon Moore can beat Ohio State with this Michigan team, imagine what he can do when he can actually put his roster together. Because what have I said all year about Michigan? Sharon Moore was put in a terrible position by the way Jim Harbaugh timed his departure. And Jim Harbaugh timed his departure on the NFL's coaching carousel schedule. So you can't really blame Jim Harbaugh for that. He had to wait till the jobs were open. The jobs were open. He interviewed for them. But he didn't get the Chargers job until January 24th. At that point, everybody good you wanted out of the portal was gone. You had passed on any potential quarterback you could take out of the portal. Sharon Moore was hamstrung offensively. Now, he did inherit a great wealth of defensive talent. And by God, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham and Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore played a hell of a game against Ohio State. They were awesome. But the offense that was stitched together, what they stitched together with Alice Orji to win the USC game, what they stitched together today with Davis freaking Warren and Khalil Mullings and your video game cover guy, he's not had the greatest season. Donovan Edwards didn't have a great season. Khalil Mullings was carrying it. The offensive line doing the best it can, but the defenses know the passing game is limited. The fact that they managed to put together a game plan to beat Ohio State with that.
Well, it's like the thing that's alarming too is that you can, I don't know if you think Will Howard's good or not. I thought he's had a really good year.
I thought he had a fine year. I thought he threw he threw a bad pick today, but guess what? So did Davis Warren threw an awful pick too on what should have been a touchdown. Yeah.
Quinshaw Junkins, Trey Henderson, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Emeka Egbuka.
You're right.
Like they scored 0 points in the second half. And I know they missed a field goal or two.
But that it shouldn't even matter. Like you shouldn't be kicking field goals because you have freaks all over the field.
Ball back with 50 seconds left, and they have to get into field goal range. They can't even get a first down. The entire game, they couldn't move the football. So, like, and I don't know if it was poor play call. Like, break it down. Go ahead, try to break it down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is the first year where it's like, did Chip Kelly call a bad game? Is Will Howard the wrong portal take? Should Ohio State have gotten Cam Ward? Would they be better if their offensive line didn't explode? Like, yeah, I mean, all those things are part of it, but like the team that they fielded today is 20 points better than the team that they lost to.
Yeah.
Period. And it's like, well, they lost. So anyway.
What do you do though? What do you do?
I don't know.
What do you, okay.
They asked him after the game what he should do. Ryan Day is like, I don't know.
I will start.
What's he going to do?
I'll ask you, Ari Wasserman, because you're not bound by actually having the job. If you're Ryan Day, what do you do? Do you go try to find another job? Or do you say, I'm going to fix this?
He's got two options. He can quit. I don't think, like, let's get this out there. I don't think he's going to get fired. Do you think he's going to get fired?
No, I don't think. I think that is
fired.
I think that is the one option that is not on the table. Okay. It's super expensive. Ross Bjork just got there. Also, you look at the guy's record. You're not firing him with that record. You're just not.
Yeah. I don't know if I think that this is a big enough problem where you could consider it. A big enough problem where you can consider it. But I agree with you. I don't think he's going to get fired. So he's got two options. One, quit. And when I say quit, meaning go take another job somewhere because you don't want to deal with it anymore. Or two, try again next year and try to bring as many players. Like, here's the thing. They're losing everybody too.
Right.
So they've got to go.
The thing. This was that version. This was the Ohio State version of last year's Michigan team where everybody came back for one more ride. They could have been in the NFL, but they decided to come back and try to win a national championship. And by the way, they still can. That's not off the table.
We can go. Like, here's the thing.
The team that loses to that Michigan team is not going to win the playoff.
The thing that is interesting to me is the best game that Ryan Day has coached at Ohio State was the 2022 loss to Georgia in the playoff. And that was after they lost to Michigan. So if Ryan Day can get out of his head, has a month to prepare or 3 weeks to prepare with a new offensive line, like they have the talent to play with anybody in this sport. I'm not going to talk myself. They're like, there's nothing to talk yourself into right now. It was a terrible day and it's just a disaster. Like, I'm not trying to pretend like, oh, they're going to go win the national. I would never even predict that. But the difference between 2021 Ryan Day and 2019 Ryan Day and 1996 John Cooper is that this game in the past, this game last year ended your season.
Yeah.
So like Ryan Day doesn't have time to cry about it. They are going to be in the playoff 99% starting in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like they might go on the road to Knoxville.
They could be in a playoff game in 20 days.
And like they could legitimately, it's not legitimately like I think it's going to happen, but it is within the realm of possibility that they could win a national championship. And this is a secondary conversation, which I think is a very interesting one. It's like, what if Ohio, because I said, well, what do you even do from here? And you were like, go win the national championship. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, but like is all forgiven? Like, do we just forget about this problem?
I think a lot is forgiven if you win the national championship, but yes, it's still Ohio State, Michigan, and even though there's a mechanism to lose to Michigan and win the national title still, which there was in the 4 team as well.
Yeah,
but
it happened once almost. Yeah,
but no, not all is forgiven, because in that rivalry you can't lose it like this. You can't keep losing it.
Yeah, and it's like I regret the one thing I regret, Andy, is I wussed out, and I just like I can't prove it. I should have written the column I wanted to write on Monday, which is forget how many good players you have. That's not what this is going to be about. And I would have looked like a freaking genius, but because the spread was 20, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this. People are going to call me.
Well, I think we might have been underestimating Sharon more too.
Yeah, I mean, like I think people would have just called me a shit stir, and I didn't want to live through that during Thanksgiving. So I'm a wuss. I should have written it. It's a lesson learned though, because I'm going to become more insufferable now in the future. But like that is what it is, and like it reminds me of like not just John Cooper not winning the Michigan game, Andy, but like John Cooper's superpower as Ohio State's coach was super
recruiting.
Ohio State had super teams.
Well, they were loaded, yeah.
Eddie George, Orlando Pace, Sean Springs, Antoine Winfield, Andy Katzenmoyer, Terry Glenn, David Boston. Like, think about these names that I'm just saying. Never won a national title. Lost him. Was he 2-9-1? Is that what the record was?
Yeah.
There for 13 years, won twice. Like, this is the same problem. And like, Michigan had some good teams in the 90s. They had some NFL guys. Like, they weren't dog shit in the 90s, but like they still
were.
That
Brady guy. He was okay.
Yeah. I don't even remember his career there. I don't.
Well, it was a lot of Drew Hinson and him. Will they or won't they?
Did he start a whole season for them at one point?
Not really.
So it was a very forgettable career. Anyway, same problem. It's like history is repeating itself in front of our eyes. And it's like in 2024, when you spent reportedly $20 million on your roster, you don't get 13 years to figure it out. And he's getting paid $9-10 million a year.
Yeah.
Like,
no, you don't get
so you're like
John Cooper amount of time.
Fire him.
I've seen a lot of wistful John Cooper takes.
But
like
you said they're not going to fire him. Like you were definitive about that. And I think you're right.
Not this year. If it happened again next year, I think they would.
Because like I said last year, if it happened this year, it would. Because of the circumstances at home against an overmatched team that lost their coach, lost everybody. You can't say they're cheating anymore. You're a 20-point favorite. Like, how it does not get worse than that. So, I mean, he's going to have an opportunity. I'm assuming one day he'll have a team that's good enough to go win the game. But like, it's just
he had a team good enough to win the game today.
I know. So
like that, it's so strange.
About this. We talked about this 2 months ago in person. We were with him at the Woody.
He knows it.
Like,
it's not, and that's the thing. Ryan Day is not in denial. Like, it's not like he's walking around in some cloud, some fog, thinking it doesn't matter if I beat Michigan. Like, he knows.
Did you watch his news conference today?
Yes, it was sad.
It looked like a broken man, dude.
Yeah,
like, I was like, it was.
Meanwhile, Sharon Moore gets asked about the flag planting thing and the fight. The Ohio State players start the fight after the Michigan players try to plant the flag, and Sharon Moore gets asked, do you think there should be something, like losing graciously? And Sharon Moore's like, don't know, hadn't lost.
Yeah.
So 2-0 in the rivalry.
Like, I don't know if you want to talk about the post-game stuff.
Well, let's do that. Now we've put the Ohio State subject to bed for now. We can't solve the issue. It's a thorny problem, and they're going to have to figure it out.
Like, what happens if they go to Knoxville and lose? Like, then what? It's another big game against a team that's built really well.
Yeah. Then you figure it out.
Revisit it. So
Let us talk about the end of games, because you had it in the Michigan-Ohio State game where the Michigan players attempt to plant the flag. The Ohio State players get mad. There's a fight. Michigan players are getting pepper sprayed by cops. We saw it in the Florida State game where Florida plants the flag. There's a fight. You had Mike Norvell yelling at Billy Napier. Who else tried to plant a flag and started a fight?
Video I sent the River. I sent him a video. Texas's team, after A&M went into the tunnel, into the locker room, ran to the midfield and started stomping on the logo.
They stomped the logo. They did not have.
They didn't have a flag
because the cheerleader has the flag. The flag is the Texas flag. There it is.
I'm a videographer.
Yeah.
So you know.
The Texas flag is massive. And the cheerleader does not give it to the players.
Yeah, and then the cops got them off pretty quickly.
Right. And I noticed as I walked out, there was a cop standing on the midfield logo.
Yeah. So but there was no Texas A&M player on the field to get into a fight with, though. So
do
what you want with that.
Yeah,
but that's a trend now.
I don't think there's going to be some sort of fine or what. I guarantee you this offseason they will make you can't plant a flag on somebody's field. You can't.
So anyway,
get ready for that.
I think that like it's interesting rivalry fodder, and I actually think it's really kind of funny because like, you know, people will be,
if a rivalry doesn't end in a brawl, is it even really a rivalry?
Yeah, and then like in 5 years from now, people are like, yeah, does your rivalry have people getting pepper sprayed in the face, and then they'll use it in promo videos?
Yeah.
So like I don't get too wound up about it.
Also, if you're mad about somebody planting a flag on your field, win the game. I think that there's a simple solution. Beat them.
It's like everybody said the same thing. It's like, well, if Ohio State would have shown half as much passion in
don't
the
get
game,
your ass kicked in your home stadium.
Shown as
think
much
about it that
passion
way
in the game as they were trying to get the flag out of them, maybe they would have won the game. Like it's just so whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, they are. I haven't done my bracket yet, but they're probably going to be in the 8, 9, 10 range for me. So
yeah.
And frankly speaking, like I know that I have very oriented Ohio State opinions.
Well, you covered Ohio State for a long time,
but like at the same time too, it's like Ohio State should not be in the play. Like this is like, to me, it's like that was a bad, miserable season. And like they get to like lick their bootstraps or whatever the term is and like go back. You know?
I think you're mixing your sayings here.
You
pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You lick your wounds.
They're licking their wounds and pulling themselves up. They're licking their bootstraps. And they get to like go play for a national championship. Now it's like, no, like that's
they've got to win 3 games before they can play for a national championship.
They get to play for a national championship after the terrible season that they've had is
so let's talk emotion. Let's talk emotional roller coasters.
Okay, there's a lot of those.
Yeah, how about Penn State finding out while it's on the field that if they win the game, they're going to the Big Ten championship?
It's electric, you know. And it's funny because like you saw the video of James Franklin like yelling at that fan walking off the field.
That was a month ago.
And you're like, God, that guy's down so bad. And it's like now he's like defending himself or running it up on the way to the Big Ten. Like stuff happens really quickly in the sport. It's like, what if Ryan Day beats Georgia in 2 weeks? Like it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, so, and I'm done with the assumptions.
Who had the bigger emotional roller coaster, Penn State or Clemson? It's got to be Clemson, right?
Clemson had a pretty big emotional roller
coaster. So Clemson is winning most of the game, beating South Carolina for most of the game. They let Lenore Sellers get loose. He runs for a touchdown to take a 17-14 lead. Clemson is driving to try to kick a game, tying field goal. They throw a pick. They lose. Awful when Clemson loses to South Carolina. It's also a big rivalry. It's crushing to them to lose. That's it for Clemson. No playoff, no ACC championship. And then like 3 hours later, they're in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like that window a month ago, like when Miami lost to Georgia Tech, and then they were out of the playoff for the moment, and then like 2 television windows later, they were the 3.
Like, wait a second, wait. Oh yeah.
Like so, it's like now the opportunity for that is way less because there's way fewer games next weekend.
Right.
Like you don't have a full slate, so like the grab ass back doors are going to be fewer and far between, and it'll be very interesting to see how the committee ranks the teams this week going into it because we want to see, hey, who's got an inside track.
Yeah, and I feel like we did just say earlier in the show they may just change it all up for the final one, and they might. But I do feel like we should have an idea of where they're going to be slotted.
Yeah.
And be able to figure out if somebody loses where to put them. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah,
maybe I'm wrong.
But like, you know what? One of the things that isn't on the protocol for the playoff is like current trajectory. And I don't know if South Carolina has a chance in hell with resume comparisons head to head with Alabama and Ole Miss, but like I like their trajectory the best.
Right. And we talked about this. We talked about how the 12-team playoff we think would add the element of there's going to be some hot team that nobody wants to play that's just been on fire for the last month and a half. That would be South Carolina if they get in.
Yeah. And I don't know if that is taken into account, but you know, I think Alabama is probably like we're looking down the barrel of an Alabama.
And let's talk Iron Bowl, Ari, because that was if you watched Alabama play Oklahoma and you watched Auburn play Texas A&M and then you saw the spread, you're like, what the hell is this? Auburn's going to play a very competitive game against Alabama. Nope. Was not competitive. Alabama covered. None of it makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're looking right down the barrel of an Alabama berth. Like if I had to blindly guess right now who's going to make it, like this is what the system does. We bend over backwards for SEC teams that have a brand. It's like they beat Georgia. You know, you've got play the hits.
With
like,
no
you know
Nick Saban, do you think it's the same
I
brand
do. Yeah,
though?
I do.
Okay.
I think they'll get the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
I think this is a little different discussion because Alabama and Ole Miss have both beaten South Carolina head to head.
Yeah, and also, but like,
if it were all mixed up and then none of it had played one another, I think it would be different.
I mean, I think I would take South Carolina if it were up to me because of the trajectory.
Well, and I think if we did the
egg in the last 2 weeks,
I think if we did the truth serum thing,
yeah,
South Carolina is the team people would want to play.
And on the other hand, like I think Alabama would be my third choice because Alabama's Oklahoma loss was like kind of akin to like Ohio State's. It just wasn't a rivalry game. It was like you're playing it.
It was all it was a what the hell was that situation?
They didn't score. They didn't score a touchdown in that game. So like it's the same thing.
Good question by Brandon in the chat. Does Miami stay in front of Alabama? I don't think so. I don't think so. But
yeah, I mean,
but maybe, yeah.
I mean, we're valuing the Georgia win at a very high level. So Alabama is allowed to lose more, and as long as they have the win, it's fine. So that's the way it's going to work. Like I think Miami might be out.
I do too, and I think Alabama gave itself a shot by beating Auburn in the Iron Bowl, but I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do with that.
Have a 12-team field where 4 teams don't have a quality win.
Right.
Like it's like you have to at a certain point you have to put the teams in that have shown they can win those
games.
And
if Georgia wins the SEC championship, then you have Alabama and Ole Miss that both beat Georgia, and that would give the committee something to peg it on.
Because if you have Georgia winning, then Texas's best win of the year is A&M, and that's a 4-loss team. You have Indiana in the fold.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 teams that haven't beaten anybody, and then potentially who else am I forgetting that could get in that doesn't have a good win? Is that it? Like Tennessee has a good win.
Well, Penn State has a chance to get a very good win.
Penn State would have a good win.
Yeah.
If they were, but like, what if Penn State loses? That would be a quarter of the field with no quality wins. Like I think you would get if Penn State loses to Oregon, what's their best win? Pitt. Who am I forgetting?
Washington? No, I mean Washington's
that means nothing.
US, not USC. Yeah. USC's 6-6. So yeah,
you can't have 3 of the 12 teams that are in there just be products of circumstance. And then if SMU, God forbid, got in.
Yeah. Oh,
I don't mean like God forbid, like if it was bad, but I'm saying like that would be 4 of the 12. That'd be a third. Good at math podcast.
There you go. Producer River, let's bring up that Notre Dame USC score because we haven't talked much about the Irish, but I want to give you your flowers. Because the day after the Northern Illinois game, we stood actually in front of the Horseshoe in Columbus.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That Sunday. And you said Notre Dame is going to run the table and make the playoff. Notre Dame ran the table, and they are going to make the playoff.
Yeah. Broken clocks, right? Twice a day, I guess.
Well, here's the other part of that. Because when Lincoln Riley got hired 3 years ago at USC, you said Lincoln Riley is going to dominate at USC. I said he's not making the playoff in the first 3 years. And I'm going to run up a $1,000 tab at a steakhouse on Ari Wasserman next week to get paid off there.
It's the first bet I've had to pay off that I get points for. So thank you for that.
Listen, I want everybody to enjoy the process.
Pay my bookie with my credit card.
Yeah, I want everybody to enjoy the process here. But
and I get to eat some.
Interesting comments I thought from Matt Leinart after this, because the Notre Dame piece. We're going to talk about Notre Dame quite a bit over the next few weeks. They're going to be in the playoff. They're going to be probably hosting a playoff game. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about Notre Dame. Did you see what Matt Leinart said?
I did.
About USC.
They probably haven't.
Basically said, there's no identity. How do you not know what you are at the end of year 3? What is the problem? What do you do from this point forward? And there is a lot of frustration right now with Lincoln Riley. Because we said this might not be the season they want to have at the beginning of the season because he was already making excuses. He was pre-excuse making. But I didn't think they were going 6-6.
Yeah, I mean,
especially not if they beat LSU.
Like, it's a shame that I was so wrong about this, but it's like one thing too is just having a bad year, but having something like I feel better about Florida than I do about USC right now.
Yeah, the trajectory's better.
Like it makes more sense. Like I can look at they got DJ Lagway, they're going to spend a bunch of money in NIL, and they are playing really well for their coach right now. So
yeah,
I can grab onto 3 things there. What are you grabbing onto at USC? Who's their quarterback next year? Is Jaden Maiava their quarterback?
I don't think they're feeling great about that. I think they're going to the portal. They were super happy about flipping an offensive line recruit from North Carolina. Like, congratulations, I guess. You flipped a guy whose coach got fired. Like, that's I don't I don't know where you go.
They don't own California. They try to recruit out of Georgia and the South. Their quarterback situation, and they did get Husan Longstreet, so you have to like give them some credit, I guess. After
you mean who was going to go here, but then it looked like Marcel Reed was going to take over the job. Although we can have a conversation about that too.
Tonight if you want.
Yeah,
but, So USC is kind of a dumpster fire, to be honest.
Yeah,
and I don't know. The hardest part is that's like I know exactly like Ryan Day. You need to beat Michigan. Problem fixed. You know what I mean? Like, what's the How do you fix the process there?
I don't know.
Because Lincoln Riley's identity is always just being.
I think he hired a better defensive coordinator. I think Dan Lynn did a good job making the defense better.
But Lincoln Riley's identity as a coach is having a Heisman finalist quarterback and really good skill players.
Yeah,
their defense has always stunk.
Well, and look, we know that the only way to actually win championships is be great on both lines of scrimmage.
Yeah,
and Lincoln Riley's teams aren't. Ever.
No, and there's no players at the position in California. I mean, when I was at the Athletic, I think Antonio Morales looked this up, but like there was like one top 100 lineman in a 5 year
Everybody's
span.
in too good a shape. They're eating too many salads. They're just not producing enough.
Everybody wants to go to Laguna Beach and take their shirt off, and no one wants to get down with the big uglies and make a block. So, like, I don't know what it is, but there's no linemen in California. So, I don't know. Like, what's step one of the like last year? At least you're like, this went wrong, Andy. Step one, go get a defensive coordinator who can fix your defense. It's like, now what's step one?
Yeah.
Where do you even begin with this?
Well, another place I just mentioned, actually, that they are changing coaches is North Carolina. North Carolina loses to NC State again.
Another fight, by the way.
Yeah, another fight at the end of the game. Mack, though, in his final press conference as the North Carolina head coach, went after North Carolina's administration for the timing of the firing and saying, He said, like, just let me coach this game and then say I'm done. They have to fire me on them Tuesday morning.
Yeah. Do you have the quote? I haven't seen this.
I do not have the quote because the internet has been very suspect in this.
People only care about cattle in the military out here. Like, there's no internet.
Yeah, be glad we can actually broadcast to you. We found one.
Andy has us plugged in on a dial-up modem right now. Like it's like me in my parents' office at 3:30 a.m. when I was 14. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the gist of what Mack said is like, I just let me announce it after the game. Let me tell my team, don't fire me on a Tuesday morning when it's not going to make a difference.
It makes no sense unless there's a guy who's like,
I think that's what it is. I think there's a wink, or they got a wink from somebody they may have wanted, and that's why they decided to do it. If it's not, if you're just having a wide open coaching search and you're still wide open, like, you didn't need to do that. You could have just put the bat signal out that you were going to have a search.
He's given quite a bit to the program.
Yeah.
So, that's good for him for saying that. And I guess what does he have to lose? So
exactly. What are they going to do? Fire him? Or they just did. They just did.
I mean, maybe he's a less ideal candidate for College Game Day. I don't know.
Let's talk about the game that we just covered here, because I thought it was really interesting, because this rivalry coming back was massive. Like the scene out front before the game was a zoo. There was a guy riding a Longhorn who also had his dog on top of it. The cops are like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Riding a Longhorn. If you need me to go, I'll go. But that's what I'm doing. I'm riding a Longhorn."
It's good bull.
Good bull. And I mean, the Minister of Culture, Matthew McConaughey, was here. It was electric. It was a great atmosphere. I love that this rivalry is happening again. The SEC had better figure out a way to play it every year. I don't care if you stay at 8 conference games, go to 9 conference, whatever you want to do, but play this game every year. And it didn't live up to the hype as a game because Texas is better than Texas A&M. Specifically, Texas's defense is a lot better than any other unit that was on the field today.
I will tell you, this is the coolest stadium, or in terms of like thinking of college football at its peak, this is the stadium in my head. Like, this is perfect. Crowd,
they were into it
till not the best environment I've ever seen. I was anticipating,
but it would have been if it had been back and forth close.
Even in the pregame, like I was like, this is loud, but it's not like as I thought it was going to be like pandemonium here tonight, and it wasn't. And maybe it's just because it's like people were just so excited to have it back. I don't know, but like
But let's talk about the Texas
Let's talk about the
defense.
game, yeah.
Texas defense has a goal line-ish stand inside the 10-yard line, basically, right off the bat. They're stuffing Texas A&M. They have an interception in plus territory in Texas when Texas A&M is in plus territory where Taft caught the ball and tip-tapped along the sidelines. They bailed them out after the block punt at the end of the game. That's so they have that big cannon down here for when Texas A&M scores. I was coming down to the field right at the end as Texas stuffs them on the goal line, and the guys, the core of cadet guys who run the cannon, they had their earmuffs on. They were ready to rock and roll.
Yeah,
and they're just like throwing their earmuffs down, and it was It was a whole scene. But the Texas defense was awesome. They gave up 0 points. Remember, Texas A&M's only score was a pick six. Quinn Ewers turned the ball over twice in plus territory in the second half. I don't think Texas's offense
block punt.
They had a block punt. I don't think Texas's offense put Texas in great situations most of the game. I thought Texas's defense was spectacular, though.
Yeah, Texas's defense might be one of the 3 best units in college football. I am scared to death about Texas's offense.
Yeah.
And I also think
you could see the same game happen again against Georgia.
And I think there's a real discussion, and I know it's past midnight on the East Coast, but like, are we 1,000% sure that Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback on this team?
Well, you saw them with a package for Arch Manning tonight.
Little run package.
And look, Quinn Ewers has a bum ankle. Although he had a great run down the right sideline there when he needed it. But Arch Manning came in a couple of times and like ran in a touchdown early in the game. So I do think that they're using Arch in a way that says, look, if we have to do this, we're gonna use him. But now they've normalized it. They've normalized having both quarterbacks play.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like, I mean, we'll see what happens in the playoff, but I think that like Texas is still one of the top 3 most likely teams to win the national championship, just based on what they've done this year. But I still feel like if they match up with a really, really good defense, they might have a hard time scoring. So, great win. They did have to sweat a little bit, but the only reason why they had to sweat in this game is because of the mistakes
self-inflicted.
Yeah. And I guess that's just kind of like we thought that the game would get a little weird because of the noise in the stadium and the setting and I think that Texas, even though they did have that terrible pick six and a blocked punt, like for the most part, was able to stop the weirdness.
Texas A&M needs to recruit better skill players. That's Mike Elko's mandate. Like, you put better skill players at Texas A&M, this is a very different game. Yeah. This is a very competitive game.
Like, I don't know, like an Evan Stewart, for instance.
Oh yeah, like that. Oh wait, but yes, that is what they've got to do. That's where the gap is. And the thing is, for your okay, well, I'll ask you the question before I make any grand sweeping pronouncements, Ari. Would you consider year 1 for Mike Elko a success?
Yes.
I would too. I feel like they made incremental improvement over what they were doing under Jimbo. Now they need to take another step.
I would agree with that. I mean, being 1 win away from the SEC championship game and losing to the number 2 team in the country at home, although painful, you'll take that.
Probably, I will take that. So, yeah.
But the thing that is annoying, if you're an A&M fan, is that like the number 1 mandate going into the offseason is fixing the offense, which is the reason Jimbo got fired. So like, it's still the same problem, just manifesting in a different way. But I do think that A&M has the means and the desire to help this team upgrade its roster. And if they could have, honestly, they could have won this game if Evan Stewart was on the team. Sometimes
it comes down to that. Yeah.
Come down to a player or two every now and then. And they just didn't have those guys. And like even Moose Muhammad, like just somebody like that to just get open, and it's just like nobody was open.
Yeah. And Marcel Reed, like the interception was a bad choice to throw that ball.
Yeah.
Because they had just gotten down, that first drive, they get down in there, they get stopped on 4th down. No shame in that. You've got the ball back. You're back in plus territory. You can't throw that between 2 defenders. It's just not going to work.
Also not sure I loved the decision to go for it again late in the game, down by 10.
You can kick that field goal since you are down 10. It doesn't really. You're going to need a touchdown and a field goal, or a touchdown and a touchdown.
But within 1 possession, and try your best and fight like hell to tie it. Like I don't know.
I felt like that put them in a tough situation.
Yeah.
But the other part was I thought Texas did a good job running the ball there at the end, getting rid of most of the clock. And Kelvin Banks went down, second quarter? They're starting left tackle.
Yeah.
So
we have to monitor that too, because he's the best tackle in college football. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, but it was an electric atmosphere. It was a lot of fun. Ari, what else do we need to hit today? What have we missed today? What didn't we touch on that?
I have no internet. So
Texas Tech crushed West Virginia. I think there's a lot of angst about Neil Brown at West Virginia right now. I think that was one we were watching coming into the day. Oh, we didn't talk about Gus Malzahn.
Oh, yeah.
Gus Malzahn left UCF to become the offensive coordinator for Mike Norvell at Florida State. So Gus Malzahn pulling a Chip Kelly, going to work for his protege as the OC. This is, I don't feel like this is the same thing as the Chip Kelly move. This feels strange to me. But I know they were ready to run him out at UCF, but I don't know, did they have the money to fire him, to pay him to fire him at UCF?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I mean, it wasn't going well at a certain place, and there's another place that could desperately use his leadership. Just get out while you can, I guess.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what the financial aspect of that was, because they might have owed him a lot of money. So
yeah, I got a hot board up at On3. One of the names, Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. I would watch him. He actually is from Jacksonville, and it was a UCF grad assistant early in his career. I think they're going to try to talk to John Summerall at Tulane, but then again, so is everybody else. I think North Carolina's probably going to try to talk to him too.
And this week, when we have 9 shows, we can talk about what's the ceiling of UCF.
Can I throw a weird one at you?
Go ahead.
Do you give Scott Frost another chance there? The man went 13-0.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think they would be happy about that?
No. But he did go 13-0.
If they hired Scott Frost, do you think that people would be like, yeah, or shit?
More shit than yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But then they'd be like, wait, he did go undefeated that one time.
I mean, he literally became the hottest coaching prospect in his cycle that year. So
that's a weird one, though. That's one we'd heard a rumor like that about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it was like, nah, that's not, because why would Gus give up the buyout? Does that help Florida State? Because I didn't feel like UCF's offense was particularly dynamic this year. And yes, Mike Norvell did learn the offense that he runs from Gus Malzahn. So it's very similar to the Ryan Day Chip Kelly situation.
Yeah, yeah. And also, too, it's you have coaches at the twilight of their career that may or may not want to deal with the NIL stuff, just to coach football. And, I could see,
Gus is I like living in Florida. I don't want to deal with this stress, so I'm going to live in Florida somewhere else with less stress.
Draw ball plays and do my best to be in. Yeah, we'll see what I guarantee you that's what his reasoning is going to be when and if he talks about it. So.
But, yeah, it's just like Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. And, of course, everything today leads back to Ryan Day because, oh my God, Ohio State lost to Michigan again.
Banana Land.
What a world.
I haven't used that one in a while.
What a sport. Guys, this regular season's been amazing. We got championship week. We got National Signing Day next week. We're going to have a lot to talk about. So, Sunday, On3 Sports YouTube channel, we'll be hitting you with some videos, talking to some various teams. We might be breaking down some coaching searches. There may be some coaching news tomorrow, too.
Yeah.
Get ready for that. We got coordinators that are going to get hired, fired, all of it. We got National Signing Day on Wednesday. The transfer portal opens a week from Monday. The day before that, they announce who's in the playoff. The day before that, championship games.
Electric.
What a year. What a year. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.